Well, for more, let's turn to human rights attorney William Julié. Thanks for being with us here on France 24.
Thanks for having me.
You heard in that report, French authorities say to bring back all the French nationals, women and children we're talking about, in one go would pose a security risk. Do you agree with that?
I don't know about security risks. I mean, the government has changed its position a couple of times on this, and it is changing its position every time there's a new decision made by international institutions. The last one was the European Court of Human Rights with a sentence against France. And they are now making decisions to bring back some groups, some children, some women, and there are some left, but they are bringing them back. So all at once or not all at once, they're bringing them back now.
Yeah, because it started, last July?
Yeah, the first, I think, decision to bring some women and children back was in July, which was not a long time after it was very clear that sentences were going to come out in courts, but also by the UN committees that had been seized by the applicants. And there was also a resolution from the European Parliament that was issued, and it was very clear that it was not possible for the French government to maintain their position on this case.
Yeah, some of the stories are quite gut-wrenching. We heard on morning radio here the testimony of one mother who wants to see her son. She won't be able to immediately. He's been taken by social services. He was 6 when he was kidnapped by his father, went off to fight with ISIS. He's now 13.
This is what everybody has been saying for months and years now, that these children especially have been living in horrific conditions, and that obviously they were going to suffer tremendous mental and physical for some damages. The situation of their mothers are usually that they get arrested as soon as they are back in France and often sent to jail. And these kids are deprived of their families. Often there's no father anymore and they don't have any other family, but they are taken care of by foster families. And then hopefully they will be able to be reunited with their mother at one stage. But no one really knows how long that takes and how they will be able to rebuild themselves.
What do you do about the mothers? Because some of them are, they're very young.
Yes.
Others are older. Some have been outspoken and militant in the past and have a track record of associating with jihadists. Others not. How does the law treat them? How should they be treated?
They're treated as any defendant is treated in this country, and they are facing accusations related to terrorism, and they are going to be treated as all the other defendants have been sentenced, some not sentenced, usually sentenced, and spending more or less time in prison pending investigations before trial and then coming out of jail after trials. But I mean, obviously, some pose more difficulties than others. Some were connected with terrorists who were part of the Bataclan, for example, and some maybe not as much involved in offences that France is now going after. And every single case is going to be dealt with as judges must deal with them. And I do believe that it's a good thing now that they are going to face justice in a country where it is possible to face justice. This is France, because at one point the French government was saying, no, we can't intervene because they need to face justice in Syria if that is something which is possible. And obviously it is not possible. So for the rule of law, not only for these children, I think it's a good thing that these ladies, these women are facing now justice, and we'll see what happens to each of them. But they will be able to defend themselves, have a lawyer, have a judge, and see if justice is rendered or not. But at least there's a system to deal with it.
We're talking about families that went off to Syria and Iraq, in some cases 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When you look at these cases today, has your perception of what happened during that time, you mentioned the Bataclan, has it evolved? Has it changed?
I don't think it's changed so much. I think, first of all, that all these events are still vivid in people's memories. And I have advised on several terrorist issues, and more recently on an Italian one, which goes back to events going back to the 70s or 80s. And this case is still vivid in a lot of Italian people's minds. And I think that this is maybe what is specific about terrorist issues, is that the damage to societies is so huge that things don't go away. They sometimes go away, but they don't go away maybe as quickly as they do for other type of crimes always being serious issues.
There was the praise for the judiciary back in June when the verdict came in for the Paris attacks, because they said that they'd taken the time to review all the case and that it was a trial for history. In the case, though, here now, for these real people who are in Syria and Iraq, is the French state handling this with the same deliberation, or is it just political decisions to take them back in drips and drabs?
So bringing these people back or not was a political decision, and that was actually what was in the middle of the legal fight, which was very interesting because the government was saying this is an acte de gouvernement, and the courts don't have a say in that, and the administrative courts confirmed they were okay with that, which I think was crazy. And then this is where the European Court of Human Rights said, no, you can't say that, you have to have a reasoning, and they have to be a forum in France to discuss whether these people
So it doesn't come from magistrates, it comes from the Interior Minister and the President.
This was before the European Court of Human Rights and all these UN committees started to say, no, I mean, this is a legal matter. Everything should be legal. And you can't just say that this is an acte de gouvernement and that it is the decision of the Foreign Affairs Minister or the Interior Minister, and that's it, and nobody has a say in it. So that does not work anymore. But now that judges have a say, and that because they have a say, the government has changed its position, then starts the criminal procedure aspect, which is the one you were mentioning. And I think that for that, no one can say that the French prosecution authorities and the French judges are not trying to do their job as well as they can. And we saw that with these big trials, the Bataclan, the Nice attack, which I think were dealt with very carefully, and the press was saying that it was nearly unanimously a very good job being done. And I think that for these cases, having to do not with attacks in France, but having to do with people who went there in Syria, that there's also care in what is going to be brought to the courts if a case is brought to the court. And my experience is that there have been sentences, but also non-guilty verdicts rendered, not as many as guilty ones. But I think that the course of justice in France on these matters is being dealt with properly. Judicial. What happened before was political, and I don't think I agreed with it as much as I agree with what is happening in the courts.
Put it in the hands of the judiciary. William Julié,
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.